Oh, look at that. Oh, really? Yeah.
Gut reaction. Konnichiwa. Aloha nerds. I have just seen Godzilla Minus One, and it was awesome. Aloha nerds, and welcome back to the TheSalawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction, where I watch things and react from the ground. I think that's pretty close to how Godzilla sounds. Okay. I saw Godzilla Minus One, was it yesterday or the day before? It was an awesome time, opening weekend. I have to say Godzilla Minus One was spectacular. And Kaiju No Kami said it first. That he was the only review I wanted to watch because he's the only reviewer I have watched who's gone into the kaiju movies and the Super Sentai and all that stuff. I really think he's a fantastic podcaster. So, you know, if you don't like my reviews, I understand. But if you need a good place to go where you want someone who has a real good sense of that form of cinema, the kaijus, the mecha, all that, go see Kaiju No Kami's page. I'll put his link in the description here. You better remember to put the link there. But I watched his review, he said it's not perfect, but he really gave it a 10 out of 10. And so I went into this with very high expectations, and those expectations were met. And I saw what he meant by the movie's not perfect, but I also understood why it was given a 10 out of 10. This is a real movie. Right up front with Godzilla Minus One, we have our main character, Koichi Shishima. Shishishuma. I'm screwing up your name. I'm already screwing up. But this kamikaze pilot has some faulty engine problems, so he pulls off to this little island for repairs. And you know, essentially, the credits say this is literally the final days of the war, and everyone's very worn out. Everyone's worn down. But then Godzilla shows up. So right from the beginning, we got Godzilla right in the beginning. So that's all I want to really spoil for this movie is that a kamikaze pilot. So he's our hero, right? Right in the first 5-10 minutes of this movie, Godzilla shows up and starts wreaking havoc. And so one thing that I appreciate from watching the originals to where I'm at now, Son of Godzilla, you watch in the original movies, all of those movies, the first 45 minutes, Godzilla's not there. And it's just like Jurassic Park, that human character buildup. And I think it doesn't really hit its stride until Ebirah and Son of Godzilla, where finally the kaiju show up in the beginning, where it's like, why are we doing all of this buildup? Like, it's a monster movie. Just give me the monster already. And so to that end, Godzilla Minus One just starts off with Godzilla and gives us a really incredible sequence. I do wish they'd done just a little bit of Godzilla behind the trees. You can't quite see who he is. But no, they just go full out. You see Godzilla right up front. It's an awesome action sequence. And that's how the movie starts. You know what I mean? And so, he's our hero, so he survives the sequence. But it leads into this very beautiful story of like I said, this movie does its best to have an A movie within its B movie, where our kamikaze pilot who survived the Godzilla incident, also the war ends at the same time. So he comes back to a devastated Japan, and he finds his parents have passed, and he runs into this beautiful girl named Noriko, and she's taking care of a child, and they sort of become a makeshift family, just looking out for each other in desolate Japan, desolate post-war Japan. It was a very interesting perspective on the movie. You know, when you think about Gojira starting off in 1955, it's a decade later, so Japan is, for the most part, rebuilt, or as far as we can tell, as the movie's showing us, it's showing us a rebuilt Japan that looks very pristine and nice. But we get this really nice story about the pilot is dealing with the traumas both of war and of dealing with Godzilla. And Godzilla returns, you know, this is Godzilla essentially rebooted and set, you know, 3 years earlier than his original appearance in the movies. So they're giving a completely different social context, which is really putting us in the point of view of the survivors of World War II and being the soldiers in particular. It really puts us in a very specific headspace for where Japan is at the time period. And so Godzilla doesn't just represent, and, you know, in the old movies, Godzilla represents that God, right? That godlike power that just doesn't seem to be stoppable, which is the nuclear bomb. But more specifically, Godzilla specifically takes the form of, while still representing that, he specifically takes the form of that war trauma that's just lurking in you and within you that you can't quite get over. The fact that it goes for that real character, personal stuff, is we have a really good story about just characters trying to survive. Not just trying to survive disaster, but just trying to survive in that basic sense of just eating, just being allowed to eat and have a home over your head. And I thought that is so powerful to have, especially in a movie about cataclysmic disaster, where it's so relatable and real, where it's just, you're just trying to forget paying the bills. You're just trying to eat. You know, to have that be the context just makes it so much bigger and so much more important for the heroes to win at the end. And so you see that drive of our characters to succeed is very much relevant to their daily lives of just needing a victory. When they get to Godzilla trashing Japan, it's a true update of the original Godzilla. But just the way they do it is so good, because we're so attached to our main characters by the time Godzilla finally sets down in mainland Japan. When Godzilla picks up a train in this movie and one of our important characters is in there, and it's just like, are you going to kill this person? Really? Are you going to do that? Like, you just, you know, it's just that the way movies used to be, where, you know, characters not only had value to the story, but to you, like, you feel like, oh, this is a sympathetic person. This is my friend. Like, a movie making you feel like that's your friend is an amazing thing. And so, yeah, Godzilla picks up a train, and that is amazing. It's just, it's great to see the old stuff done in a modern way, but really, it's terrifying, and it feels all the appropriate ways it should feel if this event is occurring. I think that's what makes the B movie, the disaster movie part of it, so good. It's really well put together, and then when you get to the finale, I mean, okay, but before talking about that, my favorite sequence. Okay, there's two sequences that are worth the price of admission. Remember that? Worth the price of admission, a special segment, a podcast within a podcast. Is it worth the price of admission? Is it worth that cheddar cheese that I'm spending on this movie? Yes, it is. The two scenes that I would say that I'm gonna have to spoil a little bit. Well, not really. Some of it's in the trailer. First, the opening is worth the price of admission. The fact that this movie starts off with Godzilla and it's a really terrifying sequence, and I really love the animation there. That's worth right. You just show up. I'm glad we paid to see this movie. Whoa, Godzilla's here, and that was a great scene. But then the second one, the worth the price of admission sequence, our main character gets a job working on a military tugboat. And they got a turret gun, and Godzilla is chasing them. They're on this little tugboat, barely outpacing Godzilla. And you just see Godzilla, and Godzilla's like, got his mouth open and everything. And that sequence, which it leads to an even bigger sequence, but just specifically that sequence where they don't know if they're going to survive or not, and our main character's got the turret gun and he's firing at Godzilla, and Godzilla's just roaring at them from inside the water. And I think that shot's in the trailer. That sequence by itself is worth the price of admission because it's like Jaws all over again, but with Godzilla. And the effect, it really looks like a real thing. Godzilla looks like a real creature that's alive, poking its head out of the water. And I don't know if it's animation or not because the effect was really fantastic. The fact that I couldn't tell if it was CG or not, I thought should have been the CGI standard of the whole movie. But for that specific sequence, because of the scope of how big Godzilla's head is, his head is almost as big as the boat itself. But Godzilla's just not quite fast enough to pick up with the boat. It's just barely outpacing Godzilla. And the emotion of, that was just a worth the price of admission. Totally, double aloha hands, great filmmaking, great time. Oh, the tugboat sequence is one of my favorites. This movie is just, every time Godzilla's on screen is basically worth the price of admission. But those two scenes, I'm telling you, in terms of just being afraid of Godzilla on a relatable scale, I think part of the problem is once Godzilla is walking around, it is such an unrelatable scale, you can't help but just notice the effect of it. No matter how good the CGI is, and maybe it's just that it's not good enough to be undetectable, but you see the CGI-ness of the destruction, and it does make me miss the men in suits destruction. Obviously, Godzilla is just way too big, but I do feel like there has to be ways to have relatable levels of destruction, just so you're not in that weird gray area of should I feel anything about this because those are 100 CGI buildings getting smashed by a tail. You know what I mean? I think that's part of the problem with this kind of movie is when you're so serious and you have such good sequences where Godzilla does look pretty photoreal. The scenes where Godzilla's fully shown doesn't look quite as good. And now, all that aside, I tried not to spoil too much of this movie. Should you see it? If you've liked my other reviews and feel like I'm someone you should trust, then yes, you gotta go see Godzilla Minus One. If you love Godzilla, go see Godzilla Minus One on the big screen. Don't miss out. This is the Godzilla we have all been waiting for. I think even from the original Godzilla, this is the Godzilla we have been waiting for. The pure terror, original Godzilla that Godzilla was when he was first made, but made with modern technology and truly able to achieve in all of his sequences what he's supposed to achieve. I think, Ishiro Honda did fantastic work with those first 6 Godzilla movies. He really had a great sense of scope and scale, and the destruction of the special effects, little buildings, and how it was really fantastic. He did achieve the terror of the time, and I think this is a very nice update. I don't know if Ishiro Honda is still around, but I hope if any of the original directors are around, I would love to see what they think of this movie. I hope they do some kind of documentary or viewing where we can interview some of the original directors if they're still around. But I do feel like this movie very nicely honors Ishiro Honda's work and brings it to today's time. And Ishiro Honda wasn't the only director of the first few movies. There's another guy, I forget his name right now, but Ishiro Honda did basically direct the majority of the first 6 films of Godzilla and really set the tone and voice of what the character's supposed to be. And I gotta say, just from knowing that, and again, I love the Godzilla 98. Whoa, like this is the Godzilla. Like this is Godzilla. Like now we're talking. And I really hope they make more. I won't say that there's not something suggesting there will be more at the end. I don't want to spoil the ending for you. I mean, Godzilla is so freaking destructive in this movie. I don't want to spoil the ending for you for, how it pans out. But it does seem like we might get another one after this. So I'm hoping we do. But anyway, that's as much as I can be spoiler free about the movie. I really appreciate the attention to character and the dramatic arc that our hero goes through. Does the ending have a little bit of cheese? Yes, but it's a really, I'm grateful for how it ends. I think the ending is pretty beautiful. Even though you can kind of see the ending coming, I think the ending is very beautiful. And it's so much in the spirit of the original 3, or the original 2 Godzilla movies. There's even this little packet of photographs that our main character has, and it looks very similar to a packet that one of the airmen from the Godzilla raids again. So this movie is awesome, but it ain't perfect. One thing I have to criticize a part of this movie. I can't help it. I don't like how when they finally reveal Godzilla in full form and he's walking around, he looks very stiff. You just kind of see his gigantic legs moving, but his upper body is just completely stiff, as if it's being moved on a track. I'm not sure if this was a choice or if they just didn't have the time, but I do wish they added like a little sway to his body. And just give him a little bit of that sense of the men in suits. Because that is where this comes from. The men in suits kaiju movies. That's where this all comes from. And I would really have loved just that little sway of hey, this is a big body. And it takes a lot of effort to move it around. I think that's really my only complaint. Besides, when you are watching it on the big screen, the CG does look very CG. In particular, in Godzilla's first full-on arrival. I do wish they had just utilized a bit more of the cinematic buildup of kind of seeing things in front of Godzilla before you fully see him revealed. Even though we do see him basically stand up in the water earlier, when it's Japan itself, or it's the town Ginza in this case, but when it's Japan seeing Godzilla for the first time, I would have loved that old throwback of just kind of seeing it appear behind things, and just really, like that shot from Ghostbusters where you see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man through the windows of a building before he's walking past it in front of a shorter building. And it's just that kind of slow cinematic reveal. Even though the character, again, I think this would also have applied perfectly to the first scene. I thought it was a little bit weird, people already saying his name in the beginning. I would have liked if this was literally the origin of him being called Godzilla. where the name come from. I think since you're doing -1, since you're doing a reboot, it would have been nice for someone to just out of terror go Godzilla. Like, what the hell are you talking about? It's a god and it's a freaking lizard, man. You know what I mean? Just like Godzilla. Rather than people kind of already knowing about it in the opening scene. And again, start off you hearing the sound, seeing something move behind the trees. You can't quite see it until it's on top of you. I think just a little bit of that build up would have been nice. It would have amped up the action a bit better. Whereas when you start off full on seeing everything, it really makes you have to choose. Am I going to accept that this is just a CGI thing jumping in front of me, or not? Which is fine. That's a choice. But I think when you do like the RoboCop buildup, you don't see RoboCop all the way. Even though you are going to show him in full, just the build up to seeing him in full, where you kind of say, what is that moving behind the tree? Oh, that thing is huge. Oh my God. Whoa, just a little bit teasing of it. Just tease us a little bit before you show it in full and then show it in full. Little things like that would have helped the movie. Not needed. I still love this movie. Like, when it ended, I was just happy. But I just think little things, those little teases, like seeing the Dragon Zord, when the Dragon Zord appears in Power Rangers, and specifically the Super Sentai version, and first you see just the top of his head, and then you see his tail swing over a couple buildings, and then you see just his upper half swaying as he's walking over. Buildings are in front of him, and you're just sort of watching his natural sway. Like, the build up to seeing the Dragon Zord then in full body finally going, ah! It just really has a lot of impact. That's just sort of a technical thing, and it's just, not every film has to do that, but I think it helps. I think it helps with the hype. And I think that's part of why I love the tugboat scene, because we could not see all of Godzilla. We only saw his head and just a bit of the spikes behind it. And I just thought that, now you're teasing me. Now I'm wondering what Godzilla is going to look like in full, even though I know what Godzilla looks like in full. I think that's always a lot of fun. And they did do that a little bit when he came into the town. I think one of my favorite shots also is, again, spoilers, when Noriko, love you. When Noriko, who's the one who's on the train, and it's a shot in the trailer as well, when we see from outside the train window looking in at Noriko, and we just see the blurry reflection of Godzilla. I thought that was very cool. And here's another place where it's a small thing, but maybe having the window shake every time he steps would have been nice, because they do that a couple times in his reveal, where you kind of hear the shaking of the ground. I wish they played a bit more with that. I think, this is one of the things I love about Jurassic Park and the 98 Godzilla, was the attention to that very specific detail. It's like, this thing is huge. When it steps, everything shakes. So I really love that kind of little detail. And there, this is a huge movie. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of emotions going on. And definitely the focus of this movie was having a good character story. Again, I didn't like the 2014 movie because I felt like Aaron Taylor Johnson just was not given a good story. Or if it was there, it was edited out of the movie somehow. A story requires some level of conflict, some level of something going on with the character on the inside that is sort of reflected or manifested through whatever else is going on, whether it is the A movie and it's, the accused going to court, or whether it's the B movie and it's a monster attacking you. The monster has to represent the gravity of your personal things that are going within you. And where this movie succeeds is where all of the other movies failed, It really gives the human characters a good storyline, and their storyline is the focus of the movie, while still maintaining Godzilla as the central character. Like he's the reason we're here. We're given just the right amount of Godzilla where we feel like we're in a Godzilla movie. And everything Godzilla does affects the characters. Like he is the trauma that our main character Koichi is dealing with. He's dealing with in the opening scene, watching his fellow soldiers, who he only met that day, get completely crushed and killed by Godzilla. And so he's having all these traumatic dreams and flashbacks throughout the movie, which is so good. It reminds me of older war movies, really dealing with the honest experience of what a veteran goes through, and not just. I do feel sometimes people are just putting on airs or trying to be self-important when they do these war veteran movies, and I feel like, would a war veteran feel like this is real? Because it's only, I feel like I have to watch like Lone Survivor if I want to feel like I know what the war veteran's going through. Or a lot of times you see these blockbuster movies and it's like, you don't know anyone who's been in the war. You don't know anyone who's been through anything serious at all. You watch these Transformers movies, like, yeah, you've met soldiers, but like you don't relate to them in any way, shape, or form. And nor do any of your Transformers characters. They just say dramatic things that sound cool. And that's kind of my problem with that. But what I love about this movie is it's very honest, it's very sober, it's very real. And even though it ain't perfect, it is still great. It's still great cinema. It deserves Kaiju No Kami's 10 out of 10. Oh, he has a new name now. It's Toku. I don't know the name, but I'll put it here. But yeah, Kaiju No Kami, please go check out his page. He's a far better podcaster than I'll ever be. He actually does the editing, and he has a really great sense of timing with all of his movie clips and all of that. And like I said, he really knows his stuff. I'm just getting into this inspired by that guy. But that's what I took from the movie, and that's all I wanted to really say. Not perfect, but doesn't have to be. You don't. No, I don't agree with the statement that no movie's perfect. I think some movies are perfect, but they don't have to be. It's artwork. It's even the most famous painting, I'm sure, has a stroke that the artist was like, should I have painted down? Should I have painted to the left? You know what I mean? It's okay. Artwork is about the expression, the intended expression. And I feel this movie totally nails its intended expression. So, fantastic work. Director, I hope I'm saying it right. Is it Takashi or Tarashi? No. Takashi Yamazaki, the director of this film. I did not look up your other credits, but I will be doing after this. Fantastic work. Godzilla Minus One. Oh, and before I leave here, Godzilla ranking. Where am I going to rank this Godzilla amongst the other movies that I've watched? Well, let's hear it. Boom! On the ranking list, I have nothing because I haven't made the list. But I'll tell you right now, where this movie lies is, I'm going to do a separate ranking, okay? We're going to do a remakes, and we're going to do the OGs. So on the remake ranking list, Godzilla Minus One is number 1. Godzilla 98 with Matthew Broderick is number 2. And I know a lot of you have now turned off and stopped watching, and maybe rightfully so. But fuck you, Godzilla 2014 is number 5. There's no 4th remake. I don't care. That's how much I hate Godzilla 2014. I'm making an invisible Godzilla remake right here as number 3 and putting 2014 there. Because that's how much I hate how you wasted the talents of Bryan Cranston and Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen, who was always just nice to see because she's Scarlet Witch. And that's where Godzilla Minus One lands on the remake scale. To see where it lands on the originals list, you'll have to watch my review of those movies. So go see the catch-ups on the the last four. My previous Godzilla review, which is probably not out yet either. I think I got through the first four. I went through Godzilla, Godzilla Raids Again. I do talk about the '98 Godzilla, and I also talk about King Kong versus Godzilla and Godzilla versus Mothra. So that's the first Godzilla in order review. And up next will be the everything from Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, Invasion of the Astro Monster, Ibira, the Horror of the Deep, and Son of Godzilla. That's what's up next for my Godzilla movies in order review. I don't know if that's the final name, but if you want to see where Minus One ranks amongst the originals, I'll be doing the first ranking in that video, which is essentially part 2 of Godzilla movies in order reviewed, or however I'm going to name it. So that's what I got to say. Thanks for watching. Aloha, nerds. Stay kaiju-y. Yeah, oh yeah. Stay kaiju-y. That doesn't make sense.